Dear students, today we are discussing about two familiar terms. First one is microprocessor and second one is microcontroller. What is the difference between microprocessor and microcontroller? According to the definition of microprocessor, it is a clock-driven, register-based, programmable, integrated circuit for general purpose. And a microcontroller, that is clock-driven, register-based, programmable, integrated device for dedicated purpose. What is the difference between general purpose and dedicated purpose? In a dedicated purpose, the microcontroller, an integrated device that can run for a special purpose only. We cannot do another function using this microcontroller that is programmed for a special purpose. For example, the microcontroller programmed for a washing machine cannot be run for a TV or for a fridge or for any other equipment, for a microwave oven, something like that. But in a microprocessor based system, it can be programmed for any purpose. There is a programming device that is called microprocessor. The program can be stored in an external device, an external memory that can be loaded to microprocessor through a primary memory that can be run, the microprocessor can be run for any purpose that we are programmed in a primary memory. But in microcontroller, the program is written inside the integrated chip and it can be run for a dedicated purpose or for a special purpose. Now, let's see the functional block diagram of microprocessor and microcontroller. Okay, the top side there is the functional block diagram of microprocessor and the functional block diagram of microcontroller. Okay, in a microprocessor based system, there is a CPU this block represents a CPU, and for the smooth working of a microprocessor system, a RAM is needed, random access memory, a ROM is needed, a read-only memory, input-output ports are needed, and timers are needed, and serial communication ports are needed. Basically, the essential part for running a microprocessor system is RAM and ROM and input-output ports. Okay, without these functions, a microprocessor system can't run successfully. Because in a microprocessor system, the CPU contains only the processing unit, nothing else. So, if we are considering a microcontroller system, there is a CPU, there is RAM, there is ROM, input-output ports, timers, and serial communication ports. Okay, in this microprocessor system, the CPU is here and all other functions are there. That is, these RAM, ROM, input-output ports, timer, and serial communication ports are external with respect to this CPU. But in the case of microcontroller, The CPU, RAM, ROM, input-output ports, timer, serial communication ports that are integrated inside a microcontroller chip. That is integrated inside a single chip. That is the advantage of microcontroller. In a microprocessor system, there is lot of RAM in the range of gigabytes or megabytes or something like that. But in the case of microcontroller, the RAM is very much less compared to microprocessor system. In the range of bytes or kilobytes. In the case of ROM, we all know in a computer there is a ROM, external ROM of hard disk up to 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes or more. But in the case of microcontroller, a ROM can be 4 kilobytes, 8 kilobytes or up to 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte. The latest technology we can achieve up to 16 megabytes of ROM. An input-output port in a computer, a microprocessor-based system, there is lot of input-output ports. Even a USB can communicate up to more than 1000 devices. But in the case of microcontroller, there is a limitation in input-output port. There is input-output port, but it has a finite number of resources. And timer, there is less number of timers in microcontroller. There is maybe one or more below 10 serial communication ports in a microcontroller. But in all together, these devices are integrated inside a single chip. So it can run independently. It can run independently. Okay, so it can be programmed for a special purpose, not for the general purpose. Special purpose means it can be programmed for a washing machine. It can be programmed for a television, smart television. It can be programmed for a smartphone. Okay, so a single function can be successfully run using this microcontroller. That is the special features of microcontroller. That is the main difference between the microprocessor and the microcontroller. A microprocessor system, there is lot of RAM, lot of ROM, there is infinite number of input-output ports that can be achieved, a lot of timers and serial communication ports, lot of communication ports that can achieve. But in the case of microcontroller, a little bit of RAM, a little bit of ROM, a finite number of input-output ports, maybe less than 10, one or two timers or 3, 4, 5 timers, less than 5 serial communication ports that can be integrated into a single chip, and it is known as system on a chip. System on a chip. That means what are the components used in microprocessor system that is integrated inside a chip? That is the main functionality of a microcontroller. Hope you understand the difference between the microprocessor and the microcontroller. Thank you.